The reef does not always announce danger with movement. Sometimes it hides danger by making it look like nothing at all. In the shallow tropical waters of northern Australia, where sunlight breaks into shifting patterns across coral rubble, sand pockets, and broken shell, the most dangerous shape in the scene may be the one the eye refuses to notice. It sits low on the bottom, rough-skinned, mottled brown and grey, with patches that match algae, rock, mud, and dead coral. Small fish pass above it. Shrimp move through the grit nearby. A crab hesitates, then continues across the floor. Nothing flees, because nothing seems to be there. That is the stonefish's power. It does not need to chase fear into the open. It waits until the world steps on it. At first, the camera almost misses it too. The reef floor is visually crowded, full of textures that compete for attention. Coral fragments, shadowed holes, seagrass blades bending with the tide, and tiny animals moving in flashes of silver and translucent legs. The stonefish has turned this complexity into a shield. Its body is not simply colored like stone, it is shaped like part of the bottom. The uneven skin, heavy head, upward-facing mouth, and buried posture all work together to erase the outline of a fish. Predators looking for a meal may pass over it. Prey looking for danger may drift too close. Humans wading across the shallows may see only reef. This is camouflage at its most unforgiving. Many animals hide by matching a background, but the stonefish hides by becoming background. It does not need perfect invisibility in every environment. It only needs the eye to classify it as something harmless for 1 second too long. On a reef floor full of rubble, the brain is trained to ignore rocks. Rocks do not attack. Rocks do not breathe. Rocks do not carry venom glands at the base of dorsal spines. The stonefish survives inside that assumption, using stillness as both defense and hunting strategy. The animal is an ambush predator, but not in the dramatic way people imagine predators. It does not stalk through open water with speed and visible hunger. It waits half-buried, conserving energy while the tide delivers opportunity. When a small fish or crustacean passes within range, the strike can be sudden and efficient, the mouth opening wide to create suction and pull prey inward before the surrounding animals understand what changed. In the space of a heartbeat, the reef floor eats, then it becomes still again. The stonefish's life is built around patience, not pursuit, and patience is cheaper in an environment where every burst of movement costs energy and exposes the body. Its venom is not mainly for catching food. That is what makes the stonefish even more unsettling. The same animal that can swallow small prey with explosive speed carries its most infamous weapon for defense. Along its back are 13 strong dorsal spines, each associated with venom glands. When pressure comes from above, the spines can stand into the force. A foot, hand, or predator pressing down does not meet a soft, hidden fish. It meets a row of biological needles designed to drive venom into tissue. The mechanism is brutally simple. The more pressure applied, the more serious the puncture can become. For the victim, the reveal comes too late. Most people do not first see the stonefish and then fear it. They feel it before they understand it. The pain can be immediate and overwhelming, spreading from the puncture site with swelling, tissue injury, nausea, shock, and potentially life-threatening effects in severe cases. The horror is not just that the venom hurts, it is that the attack begins from a mistake the victim did not know they were making. A person steps onto what looks like reef or sand, and the body suddenly receives a message from an animal the eyes never identified. That is why the stonefish belongs in this chapter as the invisible threat. The The platypus broke the rules of anatomy and mammal identity. The bull ant turned tiny size into aggression, vision, and repeated stings. The stonefish escalates the danger in a different direction. It removes the warning. It makes the safest-looking object in the scene the most dangerous one. A shark changes the water with its movement. A crocodile changes the shoreline with its presence. A stonefish changes nothing. That is the point. It lets the habitat protect it until contact becomes punishment. The reef itself helps explain why this strategy works. Shallow tropical habitats are full of animals that survive by becoming hard to classify. Scorpionfish resemble algae-covered rocks. Octopuses reshape skin and color. Flatfish vanish into sand. Stonefish take that principle to one of its most extreme forms. They use texture, posture, and stillness to turn perception against the observer. In a world where almost everything is hunting, hiding, or avoiding being eaten, looking unimportant can be one of the strongest defenses available. Even out of water, the stonefish does not immediately become harmless. In tidal zones, where pools drain and refill, an animal that can remain alive while damp gains access to a difficult edge habitat. Stonefish can survive for many hours out of water when kept moist, which means the danger is not limited to the moment when waves cover the reef. A low tide may expose what looks like dead rubble, but a living fish can still be wedged among the stones. This ability fits the rhythm of the intertidal world, where survival often depends on enduring heat, oxygen stress, and exposure until the sea returns. The stonefish is not evil, and it is not hunting humans. That may be the most uncomfortable part. Its danger is completely practical. Camouflage protects it from predators. Stillness saves energy. Venom stops crushing mouths, careless feet, and investigating hands. The same system that makes it a successful reef animal makes it terrifying to anything too large to notice it properly. Evolution did not design the stonefish to frighten people. It designed it to remain alive at the bottom of a busy, dangerous sea. By the time the camera finally outlines the fish against the reef, the viewer understands why this reveal matters. The animal was present the whole time. The danger was not approaching from the distance. It was already under the frame, folded into the landscape, waiting inside the ordinary texture of the world. In Australia, not every deadly creature has to move toward you. Some survive by staying perfectly still, letting your own certainty become the trap. The stonefish is not a monster disguised as a rock. It is something more precise than that. A living reef weapon hidden inside the shape of a mistake. Night in Tasmania does not arrive gently. It thickens over wet eucalyptus forest, button grass plains, coastal scrub, and cold valleys where the air carries the smell of damp bark, old leaves, and animal trails. By daylight, this island can seem quiet and clean-edged, with open farmland meeting native bush and dark forest rising behind it. But after sunset, another Tasmania begins moving. Wallabies feed in the open. Possums shift through the branches. Carrion beetles find the first traces of decay. Somewhere beyond the edge of the beam, a sound tears through the dark. A harsh scream, cough, growl, and screech all folded together. It sounds too large for the animal that made it. That is how the Tasmanian devil earned its name. Not from horns, fire, or myth, but from the noise of a small black marsupial making the night feel occupied. At first sight, the devil almost works against its own reputation. It is low, stocky, and compact, with a broad head, short legs, black fur, and often a pale chest, marking like a torn patch of moonlight. It can look clumsy when it ambles, even slightly comic, as if the body was built wider than necessary. But the illusion disappears the moment it opens its mouth. The head is not oversized by accident. It is a crushing machine, packed with jaw muscle and teeth made for tearing, slicing, and breaking. For its body size, the Tasmanian devil carries one of the most powerful bites among living mammalian carnivores, and that bite defines almost everything about how it survives. This is not the clean predation of a big cat or the silent strike of a snake. The devil is a scavenger and hunter in a harsher, more practical sense. It takes what the island gives it: wallaby carcasses, possums, wombats, birds, reptiles, insects, roadkill, scraps from farms, and whatever protein can be found before another animal claims it. Its role is not glamorous, but it is essential. A dead body in the bush is not waste. It is a temporary concentration of energy, nutrients, smell, disease risk, and opportunity. The devil arrives as both consumer and cleaner, pulling death back into the living system with a speed that few animals can match. The feeding scene is where its power becomes undeniable. A devil does not politely remove soft tissue and leave the difficult parts behind. It can consume almost everything: flesh, organs, bones, fur, and smaller fragments that other scavengers may avoid. The jaws close with a sound that feels heavier than the animal should be able to produce. Bone gives way, skin stretches. Teeth work through the carcass with a blunt efficiency that explains why farmers have sometimes valued devils for cleaning remains that might otherwise attract insects or spread decay around livestock country. In ecological terms, this animal is a sanitation crew with teeth. Around a large carcass, devils can gather in numbers, and the noise becomes one of the strangest performances in Australian wildlife. The shrieks, coughs, sneezes, growls, and open-mouthed displays sound like violence about to explode, but much of it is ritualized communication. Feeding together is risky. Every animal wants access to the same limited resource, and every animal at the table is armed with jaws capable of damage. So the sound and posturing help negotiate fear, rank, threat, and hesitation before full fighting becomes necessary. It is ugly, loud, and strangely intelligent. The devil's scream is not just horror movie atmosphere, it is social pressure made audible. The irony is that the same biting culture that helps devils compete has also become part of their greatest modern threat. Devil facial tumor disease is one of the rare cancers known to spread between individuals like a contagious disease. It is not a virus pretending to be cancer. It is living cancer cells transferred from one devil to another, often through the biting that occurs during mating, fighting, and close contact around food. Tumors begin around the face and mouth, then grow until feeding becomes difficult or impossible. For an animal whose survival depends on its jaws, a disease that attacks the face is almost cruelly precise. The disease changed the story of the species. Since being recognized in the 1990s, DFTD has spread across much of Tasmania and caused major population declines in affected areas. It has pushed scientists, conservationists, and wildlife managers into a fight that is part medicine, part ecology, and part race against time. Devils are being studied, monitored, bred in insurance populations, and watched for signs of resistance. Some populations show hints that the story may not end in simple collapse, but the disease remains one of the most extraordinary and dangerous wildlife health problems on Earth. In the body of this animal, cancer stopped being only an internal failure and became something that could move through a population. That gives the devil chapter a darker weight than raw jaw power alone. The animal is strong enough to crush bone, yet vulnerable to a disease spread through the same behavior that structures its life. Its bite is survival, competition, feeding, mating, conflict, and risk all at once. A devil cannot simply stop biting and remain a devil. The mouth is how it eats, communicates, competes, and survives. Evolution gave it a weapon. The disease found the weapon's social pathway. Still, the devil is not only a tragedy. It remains one of Tasmania's most important native carnivores, especially after the extinction of the thylacine left it as the largest surviving carnivorous marsupial. Its presence helps shape the island's scavenger system and may influence how carcasses are used by other animals. Where devils remove bodies quickly, they reduce opportunities for some pests and competitors. Where devil numbers fall, the balance of scavenging, disease, and invasive species pressure can shift. A small animal with a brutal jaw becomes part of a much larger ecological structure. By the end of the night, little may remain of the carcass except flattened grass, fragments of scent, and tracks pressed into damp soil. The devils move away into scrub and shadow, heavy for a while from feeding, then swallowed by the same darkness that made their screams sound impossible. They are not elegant animals, and they do not need to be. Their power is raw, practical, and deeply tied to the island that shaped them. The Tasmanian devil begins as a creature people laugh at because of cartoons and noise, then becomes something far more serious. A bone-crushing scavenger, a social fighter, a disease survivor, and one of Australia's most intense examples of how survival can be both brutal and fragile at the same time. The rainforest changes when a cassowary enters it. Not loudly, not at first, but in the way the undergrowth seems to make space for something older than the trees around it. In the wet tropics of northern Queensland, where vines hang like cables and fan palms catch the morning light in broken green panels, the bird steps out of shadow with the weight of a creature that does not need to explain itself. Its black feathers fall like coarse hair over a heavy body. The neck glows electric blue and red against the dark forest. Above the head rises a hard, helmet-like casque, giving the animal a profile that feels almost prehistoric. It is easy to understand why people call it a living dinosaur. Birds are the surviving branch of dinosaurs, but the cassowary makes that connection visible in a way most birds politely hide. At close range, the illusion becomes stronger. This is not a delicate forest bird built around song, flight, or bright decoration. It is a ground-dwelling animal made of muscle, balance, and momentum. The legs are thick and powerful, carrying a body that can stand nearly as tall as a person. The feet have 3 toes, but the inner toe is the one that changes the entire mood of the encounter. A long, dagger-shaped claw, often described at around 10 centimeters or more in large birds, positioned like a natural blade at the end of a kick. The cassowary is not hunting humans, and it usually prefers to disappear into dense rainforest rather than fight. But if cornered, harassed, or forced to defend chicks, this animal can turn its legs into weapons with frightening speed. That danger is why the cassowary is often called the world's most dangerous bird. The phrase can sound exaggerated until the camera drops to foot level. A kick from a large cassowary is not a peck or a warning scratch. It is a forward-driving strike, powered by one of the strongest sets of legs in the bird world, delivered by an animal that can move through tangled vegetation with surprising force. It can run at speeds often reported around 50 kilometers per hour, not across a clean track, but through forest where roots, fallen trunks, and undergrowth slow almost everything else down. It can also swim, crossing water when terrain, territory, or pressure from dogs and other threats forces it to move. The result is uncomfortable. This is a bird you cannot neatly categorize as landbound, slow, or harmless. But to frame the cassowary only as a weapon would miss the deeper story. The same body that makes it dangerous also makes it one of the rainforest's most important engineers. Every day, a cassowary walks old routes through its territory, searching for fallen fruit beneath trees that may be separated by thick vegetation, steep slopes, and seasonal food shortages. It swallows many fruits whole, including large fruits that smaller animals cannot manage. Inside the digestive tract, seeds pass through without being destroyed, often leaving the bird in large piles of dung rich with moisture and nutrients. What looks unglamorous on the forest floor is actually a delivery system for the next generation of trees. This is where the cassowary becomes bigger than itself. Some rainforest plants depend heavily on large animals to move their seeds away from the parent tree. Without movement, seeds pile up beneath the canopy where fungi, insects, rodents, and competition can reduce their chances of survival. A cassowary solves that problem by carrying seeds across the forest in its gut, dropping them in new patches of light, along trails, near gaps, and at the edges of watercourses. The bird is not trying to plant a forest, it is feeding. But the forest has evolved around that feeding, turning appetite into regeneration. In a real sense, the cassowary does not only live in the rainforest. It helps build the rainforest as it walks. The relationship becomes even more remarkable when we understand what the bird can eat. Cassowaries feed mostly on fallen fruit, but they also take fungi, insects, snails, small animals, and carrion when available. Some of the fruits they swallow contain chemicals that would be unsafe for humans, yet the cassowary's digestive system can handle them. The forest has written its own agreement with this bird. Fruit offers energy, the bird offers transport, and the seeds receive a chance at distance. It is not friendship in a human sense. It is ecology, built through generations of pressure, reward, and survival. The male cassowary adds another layer to the story. After the female lays large green eggs in a simple ground nest, the male takes over incubation and chick care. He sits through the long waiting period, then guides the striped young through the forest after they hatch. Those chicks are not born knowing the whole map of survival. They learn where water gathers, where fruit falls at different times of year, and which paths lead through dense cover. In a rainforest where food is scattered and seasonal, memory is as important as strength. A cassowary's territory is not just space. It is a mental map of trees, timing, shelter, and risk. The casque on the head remains one of the animal's most mysterious features. It may help signal age or status. It may protect the head as the bird pushes through dense vegetation. It may also play some role in low-frequency sound, either helping with the deep, booming calls cassowaries use in thick forest, or possibly aiding their ability to detect those vibrations. The science is still cautious, and that uncertainty makes the feature more interesting, not less. In a rainforest, low sound travels differently from bright color or sharp calls. A deep boom can move through leaves, trunks, and distance in ways that higher sounds cannot. For a solitary animal living in dense cover, any advantage in sending or receiving those signals could matter. The cassowary's danger, then, is only one side of a much larger animal. It is armed, fast, and capable of serious injury, but it is also a gardener, parent, navigator, and acoustic mystery moving through one of Australia's richest ecosystems. It looks like a relic because it carries ancient design openly: flightless power, heavy legs, a helmeted head, and a body adapted not for the sky, but for the deep green corridors below it. Yet, it is not a leftover from the past. It is active, necessary, and modern in the role it plays. When the bird finally turns and vanishes between the palms, the forest does not feel empty. It feels planted with its presence. Somewhere behind it, seeds are being carried into darkness. Future trees are passing through a living body, and the same claws that can tear open flesh are walking the next forest into existence. The cassowary is frightening because it can hurt you. It is astonishing because the rainforest still needs it. At the edge of an Australian creek, before the morning light fully reaches the water, the platypus appears less like an animal entering the scene than a contradiction slipping out of the bank. The surface breaks softly, and a low brown body moves through the current with the patience of something built for a very old world. At first glance, it almost looks assembled from spare parts. The bill of a duck, dense cold water fur, a flattened tail, and webbed feet that can paddle through water or fold back for digging. It lays eggs, yet feeds its young with milk. It looks harmless, even a little ridiculous, until the camera stays with it long enough for the ridiculousness to become precision. This is not nature making a mistake. This is evolution ignoring the categories humans tried to place around it. The platypus belongs to the monotremes, one of the strangest living branches of the mammal family tree. A female does not give birth to live young like most mammals. She retreats into a nesting burrow, seals herself into darkness and damp soil, and lays eggs that belong to a much older evolutionary story. But when the young hatch, they drink milk that seeps from specialized skin patches, gathering it from the mother's fur rather than from nipples. In one small animal, ancient and modern mammal traits overlap so closely that the usual labels begin to feel too simple. The creek explains why this strange body works. A platypus is not designed for speed in open water or elegance on land. It is built for the narrow, muddy, insect-rich world between the two. Its dense, waterproof fur traps insulating air close to the skin, helping it stay warm in cold streams where heat leaves the body far faster than it would in air. A small, warm-blooded animal pays a constant energy tax. Every dive costs oxygen. Every minute underwater pulls heat away. The platypus solves this with thick fur, strong forelimbs, a low body profile, and a life spent feeding hard enough to keep the engine running. Then it lowers its head, dives, and becomes stranger still. Underwater, the platypus closes its eyes, ears, and nostrils. For most hunters, shutting down sight, hearing, and smell during the hunt would be a disaster. For the platypus, it is the method. Its bill is not just a soft-looking snout. It is a living sensor field packed with touch receptors and electroreceptors, sensitive to the faint electrical signals made when small prey muscles move in mud and gravel. Worms, insect larvae, freshwater shrimp, and other invertebrates may be hidden under silt, but their bodies still betray them. A twitch becomes a signal. A movement becomes a map. The bill that makes the platypus look almost comical above water becomes its command center below it. As it sweeps from side to side, the animal reads the creek bed through pressure and electricity, building a picture of prey without seeing it. The hunt is quiet because it is not based on pursuit in the usual sense. It is more like scanning. The platypus noses through stones, roots, and submerged debris, stores captured prey in cheek pouches, and returns to the surface to breathe and crush the catch with horny grinding pads instead of adult teeth. The scene may look gentle, but underneath it is a specialized feeding system tuned to a world humans can barely sense. Even digestion carries the same evolutionary strangeness. The platypus is often described as having no stomach, but the more accurate truth is subtler. It lacks the normal acid-secreting, enzyme-rich stomach most mammals rely on. That fits an animal collecting soft-bodied aquatic invertebrates, larvae, and small freshwater prey, rather than tearing apart large carcasses. Its body has kept what it needs and reduced what no longer pays its cost. Evolution is not always a story of adding more. Sometimes it becomes powerful by removing what has stopped being useful. For all its quiet feeding, the platypus also carries a weapon that feels wildly out of place on such an animal. Adult males have venomous spurs on their hind legs, connected to venom glands that become especially active around the breeding season. This is not a predator's killing fang aimed at large victims. It is most likely a competitive weapon used between males when access to territory or mates matters. But if handled carelessly, the spur can drive venom deep into flesh, producing swelling and pain reported as extreme, prolonged, and resistant to ordinary painkillers, including morphine. The lesson is not that the platypus is secretly a monster. The lesson is that even the strangest-looking animal may carry a serious evolutionary tool exactly where no one expects it. That venom changes the emotional shape of the scene. A creature that seemed built for curiosity suddenly becomes an animal that demands respect. Its danger is not loud. It is hidden in the rear limb of a male river animal that spends most of its life looking like a shy shadow under overhanging roots. The spur reminds us that survival is not only about hunting and hiding, it is also about competition within a species, breeding pressure, and the struggle to hold space in a limited habitat. The creek is not a peaceful background. It is a contested corridor of burrows, feeding grounds, scent trails, and seasonal conflict. And then, as if the animal had not broken enough rules, there is the glow. Under ultraviolet light, platypus fur can fluoresce blue-green, absorbing wavelengths humans cannot see, and giving back a ghostly color that feels almost too strange to belong to a real mammal. The reason is still not fully settled, and it may not have a dramatic purpose. It could be camouflage under certain light conditions, a byproduct of fur structure or chemistry, or part of a wider pattern of mammalian biofluorescence scientists are only beginning to recognize. But the image matters because it captures the deeper truth of the platypus. The closer we look, the less ordinary it becomes. By the time the animal vanishes back into the bank, the "wait what?" reaction has turned into something deeper than surprise. The platypus is not weird because it is badly designed. It is weird because it is beautifully specific. Each impossible detail points back to ancient ancestry, cold water, hidden prey, breeding pressure, and a sensory world outside human experience. The platypus is the perfect opening because it warns us from the beginning. In Australia, the most unbelievable creatures are not fantasy. They are biology, working exactly as intended. The forest floor in Australia does not need a large shadow to become dangerous. Sometimes the threat is only a few centimeters long, moving over dry leaves, red soil, and sun-warmed bark with a confidence that feels almost out of scale with its body. A bull ant does not arrive like a swarm cloud or a hidden predator bursting from cover. It stands in the open, it lifts its head, it looks back. That is the first unsettling thing about it. This is not a blind little insect wandering through debris. It is watching the world with large compound eyes, reading movement, distance, and direction in a way that makes the encounter feel strangely personal. For an animal so small, it carries the attitude of something that knows exactly where you are. Bull ants belong to the genus Myrmecia, a group found mostly in Australia and famous for doing many things ants are not supposed to do, at least not in the way people imagine ants. Many ants live through mass coordination, chemical trails, and a kind of colony logic that makes individuals feel almost interchangeable. Bull ants are different. A worker can hunt alone, patrol alone, and make decisions using vision more than scent. On the ground, she moves like a miniature wasp, with legs, jaws, and a short temper. The body is lean and alert, often black, red, orange, or a combination of warning colors that do not ask to be admired. They are not decoration, they are a signal that the soil itself has teeth. The jaws are the first weapon most people notice. Long, straight, and powerful, they look oversized on the head, almost like tools built for holding rather than simply biting. That is exactly their purpose. A bull ant can seize prey with its mandibles and use that grip as an anchor while the abdomen curls forward to drive the sting into the target. The bite may hurt, but the sting is the real danger. Unlike a honeybee that tears itself apart after one sting, a bull ant can sting repeatedly and keep fighting. The body is built for contact, release, repositioning, and another strike if the threat does not retreat. In miniature, it is a complete close-range combat system. Eyes to track, jaws to hold, venom to punish. To small invertebrates, this system is not defensive, it is predatory. A caterpillar moving across a eucalyptus leaf, a beetle crossing the wrong patch of open ground, or a soft-bodied insect exposed near the nest can be taken by a worker that hunts with surprising precision. Bull ants collect nectar and sweet liquids, but their larvae need animal protein, and that makes the workers active predators in the tiny economy of the bush. They cut down other insects and carry them back to the colony, turning the surrounding habitat into a hunting field. From above, the scene may look still. From the ant's height, it is full of moving bodies, chemical traces, heat gradients, shadows, and opportunities. Their eyesight changes everything. Many ants rely heavily on scent trails, but bull ants can track and follow movement from a distance that is enormous for an insect. Imagine an animal the length of your finger noticing you from across what, to it, is a wide-open plain. When a person steps too near the nest, the ant does not simply react to vibration and vanish. It faces the movement, it adjusts, it can follow. That visual confidence is one reason bull ants feel more intimidating than their size should allow. They do not behave like background insects. They behave like guards that have seen enough. Some species add another shock. They jump. The jack-jumper ants, part of this wider bull ant world, can launch themselves forward in sudden bursts, closing distance with a movement that seems almost unfair for something so small. The jump is not just a trick, it is a defensive and predatory advantage, a way to break the expected rules of the encounter. A human sees a small insect and thinks distance equals safety. The ant disagrees. It turns the ground between you into a smaller space. Around the nest, the danger becomes sharper. Bull ant nests may sit in soil, sometimes with small stones, twigs, and plant material arranged around the entrance. Even that detail has purpose. Some species decorate the nest surface with dry materials that heat quickly in the sun, creating tiny solar traps that help warm the colony. In a country where temperature can swing between cold mornings and harsh daylight, thermoregulation is not a luxury. It is survival architecture. The nest is not just a hole. It is a climate system, nursery, fortress, and food processing center hidden inside ordinary ground. The colony itself gives the ant its reason to fight. Beneath the entrance are eggs, larvae, pupae, workers, and a queen whose survival carries the future of the nest. A large animal stepping near that entrance is not just a passing object, it is a crushing hazard. The worker's aggression makes sense when seen from that scale. A boot, a paw, a digging snout, or a careless hand can destroy weeks of labor in seconds. The sting is not evil, it is a command delivered through venom. Move away. For most people, a bull ant sting is intensely painful, but survivable. For some, it becomes something much more serious. The venom can trigger anaphylaxis, a severe allergic reaction in which the immune system overreacts so violently that breathing, blood pressure, and circulation can fail. In Australia, jack jumper ant stings have been linked to real human deaths, especially in Tasmania, where allergy to this group is a known medical problem. That is what makes the bull ant chapter feel like an escalation. The animal is tiny, but the risk is not imaginary. It is not dangerous because it can overpower a person. It is dangerous because biology does not care about size when the immune system turns against its own body. There is also something ancient about bull ants. They are often described as primitive ants, but that does not mean they are crude or failed. It means they preserve traits that give us a glimpse of early ant-evolution: solitary visual hunters, large eyes, powerful individual workers, and social systems that feel less hidden behind mass coordination than many modern ant colonies. They are not living museum pieces frozen in time. They are successful animals using old tools that still work. By the time the camera pulls back, the bull ant has changed the scale of danger. The chapter began with a creature small enough to miss underfoot, but the closer we looked, the larger it became. Its world is not simple. It is full of vision, heat, venom, architecture, hunting, brood defense, and ancient evolutionary design. Australia does not need every threat to be huge, fanged, or lurking in deep water. Sometimes the country's warning comes from the ground itself, in the form of an ant that sees you, follows you, grips you, and can sting again. The final danger is small enough to disappear in a hand, and that is what makes it so chilling. In a shallow Australian tide pool, where the sea has pulled back and left behind warm water, broken shells, green weed, and stones glazed with sunlight, the blue-ringed octopus does not look like the climax of anything. It is not huge, loud, fast, or obviously armed. It may sit tucked beside a rock, folded into a crevice, its body soft and drab, its arms gathered close like something waiting for the tide to remember it. After the cassowary's prehistoric weight, the Tasmanian devil's jaw power, and the stonefish's hidden spines, this ending feels almost unfair. The most frightening animal in the sequence is not the one that overpowers the eye. It is the one the eye nearly forgives. When calm, the blue-ringed octopus can look ordinary enough to be missed. Its famous colors are not always blazing. They are not decorations worn for human amazement. They are a warning system, held back until the animal feels threatened. In stillness, it can blend into rubble, sand, algae, and shell, using the soft, muscular control that makes octopuses some of the most flexible animals in the sea. Its body can squeeze through narrow openings, flatten against surfaces, and vanish into gaps that seem too small for a living thing. The tide pool becomes a maze of hiding places, and the octopus belongs to that maze completely. Then the warning appears. The skin shifts. Blue rings ignite across the body, bright and electric, against a sudden yellowish background, as if the animal has turned on a sign written in light. The display is beautiful, but it is not an invitation. It is the opposite. It is aposematism, the language of warning colors, telling a predator that the next mistake may be costly. Poison dart frogs do it with skin, wasps do it with stripes. The blue-ringed octopus does it with flashing rings that turn a nearly invisible animal into something impossible to ignore. The color is the last polite message before the biology underneath becomes serious. The weapon behind that warning is tetrodotoxin, one of the most dangerous natural neurotoxins known. It blocks sodium channels, the tiny electrical gates nerves use to send messages. Without those signals, muscles lose their orders. A crab bitten by the octopus may stop struggling as movement fails. A fish or small crustacean can become a meal not because it has been torn apart, but because its command system has been interrupted. This is not brute force, it is biological silence. The body still exists, the muscles are still there. The signal between nerve and movement is what disappears. That is why the blue-ringed octopus makes such a strong ending. Every earlier chapter had a visible force, a spur, a sting, a spine, a claw, a jaw. Here the danger is almost abstract. A bite can be small, even easy to miss, but the effect reaches deep into the body's electrical language. In severe human envenomation, paralysis can progress toward the muscles needed for breathing. The terrifying part is not only the weakness, it is the possibility of awareness trapped inside a body that can no longer answer. The mind may remain present while movement and breath begin to fail. Few threats feel colder than that. There is no antivenom waiting to reverse it. Survival depends on time, first aid, and keeping oxygen moving until the toxin's effects wear off. That simple fact strips the scene of any fantasy. The danger is not a dramatic wound or a cinematic struggle. It is a race between paralysis and respiration. If breathing is supported, victims can survive because the toxin does not need to permanently destroy the body. But without support, the same temporary paralysis can become fatal. The difference between death and recovery may be whether another body can keep air moving when the victim's own muscles cannot. To the octopus, none of this is evil. It is survival at the scale of a small animal living in a crowded, shallow sea. Tide pools and reef flats are full of predators: fish, eels, birds, larger octopuses, and anything probing holes for soft prey. A creature with no shell, no speed over distance, and a body made largely of muscle and intelligence needs another form of authority. Venom gives the blue-ringed octopus space. The rings give it warning. Its camouflage lets it avoid conflict until conflict becomes unavoidable. The system is elegant because it begins with hiding and escalates only when the animal is pressed. Its hunting is just as precise. The octopus searches among rocks and coral debris for crabs, shrimp, and other small animals. A crab may raise its claws, armored and ready for a contest of strength, but the octopus does not have to win like a crab. It can use arms, beak, and venom together, controlling the prey long enough for chemistry to finish the fight. In that moment, intelligence and toxin become one strategy. The octopus is not simply dangerous because it is venomous. It is dangerous because it knows how to use a small body in a world filled with larger bodies. The tide pool itself makes the encounter feel deceptively intimate. This is not deep ocean mystery. This is ankle-deep water, family beaches, rocky shores, and places where curious hands turn shells and lift stones. That closeness is what makes the blue-ringed octopus so disturbing. It does not live in a distant nightmare. It can occupy the edge where people feel most comfortable with the sea. A tiny animal under a rock becomes a reminder that beauty and danger can share the same square inch of water. By the end, the blue rings fade back into the body. and the octopus becomes small again. That final disappearance is the most unsettling image of all. The warning was real, the toxin was real, the danger was real, and yet the animal returns to looking like something harmless enough to overlook. It leaves the episode with the sharpest lesson Australia can offer. The deadliest threat is not always the biggest, the loudest, or the one that wants to fight. Sometimes it is calm, delicate, almost beautiful, and waiting for the world to understand that touching it was the mistake.